conflict. Well, let's talk about the conflict for a second. Why did we go to war in Iraq? I mean, the reasons changed over and over again. You know, the first one, it was weapons of mass destruction. You don't hear too many people bringing out weapons of mass destruction as a justification for the war in Iraq anymore. That one's been discredited. We've been told that it was about the war on terror, that Saddam was somehow linked with Osama bin Laden, and that this is all, the president's repeating that one over and over and over and again. Here we are in New York City, just a few miles from where the World Trade Center came down, ground zero, and the president keeps bringing up the specter of 9/11. We're in Iraq because of 9/11, he says. Well, we're in Iraq to bring democracy, he said. We're in Iraq for security and stability, he said. Well, we don't know why we're in Iraq. The mission has changed so often that it boils down to we're in Iraq to support the troops. Now, how stupid is that? We're at war, having our troops killed, and we're going to stay there to support the troops. No, it doesn't work. This was an illegitimate war from day one. I took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America as a commissioned officer of the United States Marine Corps. And I believed in that oath, and I still believe in that oath. That's something worth fighting for. But I didn't take an oath of blind obedience to a president. I didn't take an oath of blind obedience to the Congress. I took an oath of blind obedience to a piece of paper called the Constitution of the United States of America, that which defines who we are and what we are as a nation. That's what I was willing to lay my life down in defense of. And there's nothing in Iraq that's going on that represents a threat to the Constitution. And yet, the majority of Americans, while they may be opposed against this war today, were actually in support of the war when it started. I think the number of Americans that were against the war was around 12 to 15%. When I say against the war, people who said this is a violation of international law, this is a war that cannot be justified on any grounds, that it's not worth going to war to get rid of Saddam Hussein, that actually getting rid of Saddam Hussein is a violation of the United Nations Charter, and because the Charter is linked to the Constitution through senatorial action, that basically said this is a good document, we signed it. Article 6 says if we enter into a treaty or an agreement that has been ratified by the Congress, it becomes the supreme law of the land. So a United Nations Charter endorsed, ratified by the Senate, that says no to regime change, and yet we went to war to achieve regime change. It's an illegal war, but very few Americans said we can't go to war against Iraq because it's the wrong thing to do. No, they bought into the hype. We're going to take out Saddam. We're fighting for freedom. Operation Iraqi Freedom. It's good stuff. Now they're against the war. What happened? I'll tell you what happened. We lost. We got our butts kicked. The American people that are against the war today are not anti-war. They're anti-losing. Had we won the war, had everything gone swingingly, had it come up smelling good, roses, songs, flower, all the things that we were promised, all these people who are against the war today would be singing a different tune. They'd be on the streets saying, USA, USA, we were right to get rid of Saddam. Look, it all worked out perfectly. They're against the war not because the war is wrong. They're against the war because we're losing. And the problem with that is that people say we won't go into Iran because the American people have turned their backs on war. No, they haven't. The American people have turned their backs on losing. And what happens when you're getting beat, you're looking for a victory. We haven't learned anything from the mistakes we made leading up to the war in Iraq. The lies about WMD in Iraq are being repeated today, the lies about Iran's nuclear program. The media continues to parrot these lies. How many people check the sub-headline, because you're not going to find it in the big headline? The IAE inspectors, weapons inspectors who are in Iran today, have just said, we're closing the book on the plutonium problem. There's no longer a plutonium problem. It's done. We solved it. The Iranians are not pursuing a plutonium-based weapon. Wow. That's stunning stuff. That should be headline news. It's not. It's disappeared. Instead, we have the president telling us that the Iranians are the #1 supporters of state-sponsored terror in the world today, that it's because of Iran that American soldiers are dying in Iraq. No, Mr. President, it's because of you as Commander-in-Chief initiating orders, sending them to Iraq to fight an illegal, unjustified war. Opposing this war is the easiest thing in the world to do because it's the right thing to do, and yet the anti-war movement can't get its act together. That's why I wrote this book. The anti-war movement thinks that A strategy is holding a demonstration on the street corner, holding hands, lighting candles, singing Kumbaya, and everything's going to be fine. No, that's not a strategy. That may qualify as a tactic, but a tactic divorced from strategy is just the noise before defeat. Who said that? Sun Tzu, the original author of a document called The Art of War. And that's why when I say waging peace, the art of war for the anti-war movement, I use that terminology. I know there's some people in the anti-war movement that are against it, that say there's no way we could support something like that. Well, then you will continue to get your butts kicked. Okay, if you want to be anti-war, that means that you have to be in conflict with those who are pro-war. Understand that there is an element of our society today that is in fact pro-war. We were warned about it by Dwight D. Eisenhower. He called it the military-industrial complex. No, actually, he called it the military-industrial congressional complex because he recognized the synergy between those three. Under pressure from Congress, he withdrew congressional, but the fact is the Congress of the United States has been for some time now completely corrupted